So one thing I've noticed over the past few years, and it's becoming more evident in everyday rap music, is the amount of functioning addicts there are. Now we know rappers are known to be real and rap about their real life experience. But it's often that theory's tested in the streets, and we often seem to ignore the rappers that are really just drowning in addiction. So today, that's what we're gonna do, man. We're gonna talk about it. But we're not gonna be throwing shade and hating on everybody. That's not how we're gonna do it, man. I'm here to focus on a little bit of the positive aspect. And while we will talk about what their drug of choice is, I also want to acknowledge the effect that these drugs have on the artists and their music. Because let's not forget, most hip-hop singers and rock stars, man, they were on drugs too when they were making the biggest hits of the past decades. And a lot of these rappers, man, they're high as hell in the studio, making some of the biggest songs that we hear every day. But to them, they might have just talked their heart out on a beat. And with the drug elevating their mind and conscious level, they're able to put real emotion on the track, and it stands out. So I'm done wasting your time, man. Let's start chopping it up. And the first artist I want to talk about is Lucky. Now, it's true music could tell a story. And with a lot of artists, I didn't even have to go deep in interviews. Because as you listen to the music, man, you learn, and Lucky makes it clear, man, he's an addict. But it goes a lot deeper than that, because he's been a fiend for a very long time. Just by his music, he's opened up about his first addiction, which was Xanax, at the age of 16. Now that's similar to a lot of rappers who came up in that 2012-15 era, because back then, bro, Xanax was real. Man, nowadays that shit is fake, but when you were doing that shit in 2012-15, these rappers were taking real Xanax and falling in love with it. And he's not the only rapper to talk about that addiction, because a lot of rappers, man, they talked about how that shit brought them to the lowest point of their life, suicidal, depressed, and disassociated. And while Lucky had already been experimental with drugs, man, Xanax was his cup of tea. And not being able to kick that, man, through his music, IG lives, and interviews, it sounds like he substituted lean in, you know what I'm saying? And on God, he fell in love with that shit even deeper. So clearly, Downers is what does it for Lucky. So let's talk about what that does to the music. Because Lucky in a lot of people's eyes is one of the most talented, underrated, and gifted artists of this past decade. And he's finally starting to get some flowers, but he still deserves more recognition. Because Lucky's music is a journal for his thoughts. These drugs make him be able to say the most smooth shit with barely any energy. He might say something about how he feels about somebody. He might talk about an ex he's been missing. He might talk about his love for codeine. But with his beautiful production, calm, relaxed voice, he's created his own style, and no one can do it. Man, in this current day of rap, there are clones for every artist. You could go on TikTok and find a Lucky, a Summers, a fucking Autumn, but guess what? At the end of the day, you won't be able to be Lucky because he's just got his own shit. His substance is too deep for these TikTok rappers. The shit he talks about is too real. And that's why people say Lucky's truly a GOAT. Hopefully one day he can inch off the drugs and live a healthy life. Or at least lower your dose. I mean, there's old heads who sip lean and are still alive because they weren't drinking a pint in 2 days. But man, regardless, we're here for you, Lucky. Now, next rapper we have on here is more of a mainstream rapper, who is again very open about their usage with drugs through their music. And we're talking about Lil Durk. Now, Lil Durk's another legend of this generation. He's been in the game for a very long time. And more than that, he's been in the streets taking and selling drugs since he was a youngin'. A lot of these rappers like to put on an act and put on a facade, but man, Durk, man, he's just kept it real from the jump. And a lot of these rappers, the environment they're from, with such little and you see the worst at such a young age, it could make for some of the most soulful music we ever heard. And just with Durk, man, you could piece together some of the most traumatic shit that he's went through. And overall in music, man, he talks about doing drugs quite often. Coming up in a time where activists was still on the market and the Chicago drill scene was bumping with LA Capone, Chief Keef, and just this new age that came up. Durk was sipping heavily and he was popping X-Way in his earlier days. And he even says that resulted in him missing a lot of opportunities and moving too slow. Now, am I saying that like he quit? Because we know that was a minute ago. And he claims that he did stop sipping. But just like Lucky, rather than quit, it was more of a trait, because as he started releasing music in 2017, just through his art alone, man, you could piece together that his habit became Percocets. People clown him too because the wide open eyes always saying Perkio. His name was really Perkio for a minute, but then that duplicate came along and we just call him Perkio, and then he disappears. So I don't know where he's at. And as he claimed in an interview at Genius, man, he was very addicted to Percocets as well as Adderall, which is another upper. And let me say, these uppers is why Durk revived his career. Nah, I'm playing. But these uppers is responsible for some of the best songs I've ever heard in my life, man. He's got songs like Treacherous, It Is What It Is, Rebellious. That 2017 era on those tapes, the songs he would have where it's just hard trap, man, those shits will go so crazy. And he will often be talking about his usage on them songs. This is when Durk became very melodic and started changing his sound to more Atlanta standards. And of course, we're not here to glorify, but when we're talking about the effect these drugs play in the booth, man, the energy on some of Durk's songs, bro, and the substance behind the lyrics is why he's one of the faces of the industry. And the reason I have him on this list is because when they asked bro if he quit, the way he dodged that question was crazy.
Have you came off of it or?
Yeah, I weaved off it a lot. Like I weaved off it a lot.
So,
I'm saying, if if you was addicted to them in the past, it's like you can't just go cold turkey. Like I'm saying,
right. I
that's what.
mean, with anything, with any addiction,
Yeah,
right?
nothing, cause it's like sieges and all of it's like you got to weave off them. But long as you trying your best to get off them, fuck with everybody else. I'm out.
And I'm not here to be like, oh, no, he's still using, because he really could have got off it. But one thing about Durk is he really claims that the studio is his therapy, and he keeps it real with the mic. A lot of shit he be saying, he records a song, puts on the flash drive, and his team is the one who said they want to put it out or not. When an interviewer read a line back to Durk about him calling himself a junkie in a song, man, Durk laughed and didn't even realize that he said that because he probably just said that shit high as hell. So by that, I'm saying, whether he say he quit drugs or not, before I go by something he says in an interview, man, his music is where he really keeps it 100. So with that said, man, he's still going crazy, man. A lot of these rappers still be going crazy on Adderall. A lot of rappers who quit drugs, man, they be thinking that Adderall is right because they don't be fucking geek, but it's still tripping. Especially with him and India broken up. I hope bro ain't going demon time, bro. That's tough. But anyways, man, Durk's a GOAT, you know what I'm saying? We're here for you regardless, man. Anyways, next rapper is a rapper who might be the biggest fiend out of all the rappers I've named so far. And that is a rapper who's signed by Lil Baby, came up in Mobile, Alabama with no cap, and is one of the hardest lyrical rappers I've heard in this entire generation. If you know, you know. But I'm not here to talk about his poetic ass lyrics on a mic or his hard ass trap songs, man. I'm here to talk about his codeine addiction. Man, he's got one of the biggest codeine addictions I've ever seen. He's a silent lucky because bro ain't active. He don't release music. One album and 6 singles in the past 3 years. That don't even make sense unless you're geeked, bro. That don't make no sense unless you're geeked. I know he got locked up in the middle too, but like, come on, bro. Unless Baby's holding him back, but I'm not even here to talk about that. But back to the drugs, man, just looking at him, he's taking that lucky route. And he don't do interviews, so everything I'm saying, bro, is really from him and his music. Cause his music does more than touch base at his addiction. With songs called Addiction, Codeine Insane, and almost every song addressing a bar about his habit, man, I'm not exaggerating when I say this man is a real functioning addict. Look at this video.
How much do you spend on lean a week, and what's the most you spent at once?
On lean a week.
Yeah.
A day, right. Hold on. I'm gonna go right now. Probably like 4,000.
4,000 a week?
Probably like 4,000, 3,800.
Damn. And that was at once, or that's weekly? Oh, and then at once, like how much?
Like 3 days.
That's crazy. Now listen, y'all, this is deep. The dark truth for a lot of these rappers who don't drop albums for like 2 years, or just in general they go a very long time without dropping music, man, people think they spent the entire time working on the project. And yes, in some cases that is the case, but a lot of these rappers, man, they just be getting high as hell. Blowing up and seeing hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're coming from a place where you struggled and had to make ends meet. Imagine if you were an addict before the fame, which in Lucky, Ralo, and Durk's case, they made it clear that they've been an addict way before the music shit. So adding money to the equation to feed your addiction, and depending on how deep you are in your addiction, man, that could be the reason for your death, man. It's truly sad. That's why I'm not trying to glorify this shit, because it's really sad. So back to Ralo, he's been teasing Ben One for 3 years almost. And whether he's trying to make it perfect or man's just getting faded, man, I wish bro well, because he is one of the most underrated rappers of this entire generation. I'm not sure if he's not dropping because Baby and it ain't because that, but we know man's a sipper. I just hope bro ain't getting high and fat, bro. Simple, that's it. Now I want to cover one more rapper, but truth be told, this could be a multiple part series, so comment who you want to see next. And to be honest, I already got some people chefed up in the back of my mind, and this could be a 10-part series. Man, there's a lot of functioning addicts in rap nowadays. But the last rapper is King Slime, aka Young Thug, man. Now Young Thug is what we call a real functioning addict, because bro is done so much, put so many people on, and at the same time this man is battling a codeine addiction. And up to the point he was locked up, man, he was open about his usage and where he stands with drugs. He said he's down to a pint every 3 weeks, which I mean, that's pretty good for a Thug, I would assume. But just like these other rappers, Thug was a heavy sipper. And since coming out, it's almost undeniable hearing his music and saying he's not high as the stars, my boy. Now, as we know, he's facing trial later this year and might face a very long time. And I'm not sure if bro is in jail getting geeked or he's sober and dealt with the withdrawals, but regardless, lean's a rich habit, and no matter what he's doing in jail, his body's gonna feel them codeine withdrawals. Even in interviews, Doug would show signs of a real addict, you know what I'm saying? But with his mysterious aura, man, we really don't know how deep Doug truly is in his addiction. All we know is that on a melodic trap beat, that shit is gonna hit your ears in a way you never heard before. That's why everybody gets faded and loves this man, bro. It's deep, you know what I'm saying? And the thing with Doug, bro, he might say some simple ass shit that has lifetimes worth of wisdom. And an artist like Young Doug, who when he was free, man, he was more mysterious and private about the depth of his addiction. It leaves us to wonder the severity of his problems, cause he never really made it seem like he was struggling, ever. Although through his music, his love for Xanax, Percocets, and codeine, it shows. Which, in just like these other artists' instance, the drugs put him in his element, because when the beats right, Doug's vocals, melodies, and flow is unmatchable. And bro's been making music geek for so long, he's really a pioneer of this whole wave. I got nothing but praise for Young Doug. And with him locked up right now, I'm not really worried about what bro's taking, man. We just want to see him home. So with all that said, the traumatic life, struggle in poverty, and mind elevating drugs make for some of the best trap music we ever heard. It's truly mind-blowing how these artists can just put their pain on a beat and we feel every word. And in a lot of these rappers' cases, getting high and venting on the mic is their way of therapy. Losing loved ones, being crossed by lifelong partners, and just being raised in poverty. Rather than judge and follow, it's our job as fans to appreciate the art and emotion that the creator put into the work he dropped, you know what I'm saying? And while there are a lot of rappers who are functioning addicts and life outside the studio may not be all what it seems, all we can do is enjoy the shit they share with us. But it's been your boy 10 Toes. I hope everybody's staying cool, staying safe. And yeah, I'll catch you boys in the next one.